All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College Application and Website Development, or AWD1111, database-driven web development course, I'm creating a series of video presentations that are made based off of Mr. Flavio Cope's thevalleyofcode.com, where he has a bunch of handbooks that he has created. So far, I have done 5 videos from his HTML handbook, 9, and this is the 10th from the CSS handbook. Next, I'm going to go through the JavaScript handbook. So this is all client-side stuff. It's all review. Then we're going to jump into some server-side stuff and go through his Node.js handbook and his React handbook. All right, so that's where we are. And I am also on page 139, so I've got about 36 pages left. I just went through and broke away from this and gave you an example of media queries, which I thought hopefully at least made a little bit more sense to you. All right. So the author says in this section, we'll first introduce media types and media feature descriptors, and then we'll explain media queries. So the media types basically is where are you going to present this? So typically if you've got a CSS file, I believe the default is all. So that means whether it's the screen, whether it's going to a printer, to a speech reader, etc. So screen is the default, not all. So that's the default. So if you say nothing, which is pretty much what we've always been doing, it goes to screen. All right, it says in the past there were more, but most have been deprecated. All right, you can use them with import statements, but that's fine. You can load a CSS file, or you can do this. And you can say media equals and put that in there. All right, it says first, let's introduce media feature descriptors, which are additional keywords that you can add to the media attribute of link. All right. And you notice we got things like width and height, and there's a bunch of other things in there as well. Each of them, as it says, has a corresponding min and max. Well, all I did was I basically went in there and in the example that I had just created for you. All right, I've got at media and I've got min width and max width. So that's the only stuff that I have played with. All right. All right. Okay. I've shown you a little bit of this as far as how you can combine these logic operators, and I use the AND in my media queries. All right. Now, I could have done this and left that, put that screen in there. I don't think it matters much one way or the other. But I also could have put screen in front of every one of these. So I should be able to go back into this, and in each one of these, I should be able to go back and say screen and just add that every single time. All right, so screen and min width, screen and min width and max width, screen and min width and max width, screen and max width. All right, so that should cover them, and actually this should look no different. All right, when the program is run. So we had that, we have the green, we should still get the blue, and we should still get the red at the particular times. So it still works, not a problem. All right. As it says here, this is one of the foundations of responsive design. Media queries, as mentioned here, can be complex. The example that's shown here applies to CSS only if it's a screen type and the width is between 600 and 800 pixels and the orientation is landscape. So you can see this is, well, if we did, it goes out a little further. All right. Feature queries are a recent and relatively unknown ability of CSS, but a well-supported one. We can check if it's supported by the browser by using the supports keyword. All right, for example, there it says, I think this is especially useful at the time of this writing. So this can say we only want to do this if the browser supports CSS Grid. All right. Here it's if it displays grid and it displays flex. When I say displays, it basically, when it supports CSS Grid and Flexbox. You can use filters, as mentioned in here, to perform operations on elements. All right. I've never done any of this stuff, but as it says, these are some of the things that you can set. All right. And there's a bunch of these. Notice there's blur for blur radius, opacity. All right, again, between 0 and 1, so how transparent? 0 means totally transparent. All right, 1 means totally visible. And you can put in any number between the two. Drop shadow, which we've talked about before. We talked about the offset of X and Y and the blur radius, so we've looked at that stuff before. Grayscale, as it says, what it says, make the element have a gray color. Maybe you've seen some of this. I know a lot of photographers, when they're doing weddings or whatever, or maybe family pictures, sometimes like to take certain pictures in what looks like black and white. I don't know if it's a sepia or sepia. I've never used that. Invert, as mentioned here, invert the colors of an element. Means looking up the opposite of the color in the color wheel. For example, it says the opposite of yellow is blue, the opposite of red is cyan. Every color has an opposite. Never use that either. Hue rotate. You can rotate the color using a positive or negative rotation. Brightness, 0 is totally black, 1 is the unchanged image. Contrast, okay, again, to make it look grayish. Saturate, some of this stuff, again, you have seen similar things to this before. To alter the saturation of an element. URL, to apply a filter defined in some kind of a scalable vector graphic file. And it says these are out of the scope of this book, but if you want more, you can go and read that. I'm not going to go into that at all. Now, I'm only 7 minutes in, so really I should have just taken this and ping-ponged that onto what I just gave, but I'm just going to continue in here. All right, we're going to start here on transforms. I've broken this thing up myself. All right, so this is basically what I've got left. I don't know if we can finish the rest of this. There is 25 more pages. If we can do the rest in here in one more lesson, or if it'll take 2. So transforms allow you to skew things. In other words, you can rotate them, okay? And it says it's a pretty cool feature. I guess it depends on your point of view. All right? And you can have multiple transforms. I don't even want to get into this right now. All right, transitions are kind of cool. As it says, it's the most simple way to create an animation. You change the value of a property and tell CSS to slowly change it according to some parameters in a final state. And here you can see. All right. And they're going to give you an example here. Now, when you do this stuff and you use background colors, etc., it says, see the example on glitch. I don't know what this is. Let's look at it. All right, so you can see as you put your mouse over it, how the color changes. All right, and of course, if you wanted the code, you could always do a view page source and take a look in there. All right, but we'd want to see the CSS. And what you notice when you take a look in there then is you're going to have transition. All right. And when you do this, you can have things ease in, ease out, do them with certain timing, etc. Some of that, again, is explained here. It says this glitch shows you in practice. There's no transition. There's a linear, so you can see both sides are going at the same time. There's an ease in. There's an ease out. There's an ease in and out. Again, these are typically done more for animation. It says the browser DevTools offer a great way to visualize transitions. Take a look. Okay. All right, with animations, now nothing wrong with doing animations using CSS. You can also do animations using jQuery. I have shown you this in the past, but I'm going to again show you. I'm going to go out here to jQueryui.com. A very ugly website, but a very functional website. So for instance, if I come in here and I want to be able to do some animation, there's color animation. All right, so what does that mean? It's pretty obvious to see what's happening there. All right, and I can do, there's one of these is really good. I don't remember which one it is. Autocomplete checkbox. It's not that one. But one of the ones that's in here allows you to switch back and forth, and it shows you all these different effects that you can use in here. There you go. There's bounce. There's explode. There's highlight, etc. All right. So you can do them in CSS or you can bring them in through jQuery as well. But as it says, animations are a great way to create visual animations. Now, one thing about this, and you've heard me say this kind of thing before, and that is never let something like this overplay your message. In other words, you don't want somebody to leave your site and go, wow, that was really cool animation. Oh, what was that site about again? All right. So it's really easy to overuse this stuff. You must define how your animation works using keyframes. And again, I don't do very much work with this, but they do have an example in here. It says, I want to draw 4 circles, all with a starting point in common, all 90 degrees distant from each other. So let's grab this right here. We will copy it. We will come back. I can now do a file, save, and a file exit. This was on the one that we were working with our media queries. So that one's done. So let's copy this, jump back into here. I don't know how I lost that, but I did. Don't want that one. I want, there we go. All right. So in this about, we had that table, so we can put it in underneath the table. That's totally fine. All right, so we've got this div class circle 1. Right now, it's not going to look like much because there's been no CSS applied. Okay, there's nothing in there, so I guess there'd be nothing in there, period. I'll tell you what, let's take what we had done here with this my section and let's comment this out. And we will comment it out right, I'll just do it right to there. There we go. So now we've got these divs with these classes, but there's nothing inside of the divs, so nothing is showing on screen as of this moment. So body, display grid, etc., circle. I'm going to grab all of this and I'm going to create a brand new. I'm going to create a brand new, whoops. Try that again. there we go. So I want to start here. And I'm going to go down to here. Try that again. Pull that up. Come on. Come on. There we go. So copy that. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create under my CSS folder. I'm going to create a new file that's going to be called animate.css. All right, I'm going to paste all of that into it, do a file, save. Then I'm going to go back. This is my about page here. All right, and rather than using the styles one, which I will comment out, I will use the animate.css file. All right, and let's see what, if anything, we did here to make this look different. I don't know if we have any content in it yet or not, so there it is. Now you can see how that screwed that up. Don't worry about that. All right, and this is the about page, so we don't need that stuff in there anymore anyway. So this will still take us home, etc. This will still take us here. All right, so I should have left that stuff in. It's fine. All right. Let's make this structure all the circles together rotate. To do this, you apply an animation on the container and you define that animation in a 360-degree rotation. So let's grab that, copy it to the clipboard. Go back to our animate file, add that. And now you can see they're all moving. Okay. You can add more keyframes to have funnier animations. I don't know what funnier exactly means, but so it's doing it at, now you notice that it's doing it at different levels. Plus we can make it go one way or we can make it go the other way. Okay. All right. CSS Animations offers a lot of properties that you can use. Again, I'm not running through this stuff. You can use JavaScript with your animations. And here are things that you can animate. Here's the full list. You notice it's fairly extensive. All right. The last thing, I believe, that's covered in here is something we have actually already covered, yet they're using a different one. So it says, when you go and create a web page, there are default styles that are added by the browser to everything you do. All right. Now, if you want to do a reset, I already showed you how to do the reset. We have already done the reset in here with our reset.css. I grabbed the one from Eric Myers. All right, Eric Myers is actually very well known as being one of the pioneers, pretty much one of the pioneers for CSS. All right. Now, there are other ones that can be used as well. It says there is a normalized.css that you can use. All right. So we could have put that one in in lieu of or instead of the Eric Meyer one. If we grab that, there it is, and it says to download. All right, so if we download it here, there it is. All right, so it's another way of doing this is what I'm telling you. All right, CSS is resilient. When it finds an error, it does not act like JavaScript. All right, it tries very hard to do what you want. If a line has an error, it typically skips it and jumps to the next line. If you forget a semicolon on one line, all right, the line with the error and the next one will not be applied. All right, but it says here the third one will be applied. Okay, it says sometimes it's tricky to realize there is an error somewhere and where it is. That's why tools like CSSLint exist. So you can go and I guess you can print in there what you want. You could type in there and then lint it. Now, not positive, but let's check something out here. And that is if we come here, and I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go over to our extensions, and I'm going to put in here CSS lint. See if there's a linter we can add. And it looks like there is no CSS lint. If I just type in lint, there's a code linter, an SCSS linter, and there's a whole bunch of other ones, but it doesn't look like there's a regular CSS lint. I'd have to do more investigatory work on that to see if that is correct or incorrect. All right, we're just about finished with this. Vendor prefixes, as mentioned here, these are one-way browsers used to give CSS developers newer features, not yet considered stable. What does that mean? Well, I believe, and I'm sure it's described in here better than I'm about to, but O is Opera, MS is Microsoft, Moz is Mozilla, and I believe that's Chrome. It's either that's Chrome and this or this one is one of the two is. What these are saying is, hey, if this is my browser, apply this. If this is my browser, these are vendor prefixes. So the idea is eventually you'll be able to get rid of all of these and just have in this one. But by putting in a vendor prefix, what you can do is you can add these prefixes to say, hey, check my browser, kind of to make sure. All right, it says in the past, basically, you had to do this. I don't think, there we go. It's like that very much anymore. So WebKit, I was wrong. So O is Opera, MS is Edge and Internet Explorer, so it's Microsoft. Moz is Safari, which is the browser, I believe, that comes standard in any iOS or Macintosh Apple device. And WebKit is Chrome. All right, just about finished here. CSS for print. The key thing is if you're going to make a CSS for print, start thinking about how you should do things, such as, all right, probably you want to get rid of all color, anything that's color. You might want to get rid of all your images, or you might not. All right. You might want to, it says HTML is great because of links, but, links aren't going to do a whole heck of a lot when you're printing something out. You want to set your margins accordingly. You don't want things to, basically have it set to like a 0 margin where you have no margins all the way around. Page breaks, be leery of where you want to have page breaks. As it says here, avoid breaking pages in the middle. You don't want to do stuff like that. All right. Debug the printing presentation. So you want to go and look at it first. Before you make it available to others, you want to try it to make sure it works right. That's pretty much it for this one. All right. I guess I did do some combining here. It wasn't exactly the way I thought it would be, but now we've gone through the HTML handbook and we have gone through the CSS handbook. So next will be the JavaScript handbook. And when we go through that, I'm going to go through it And afterwards, I've got a few sheets and some stuff, and I'm going to go through those as well, because I'd rather give you, as the saying goes, a plethora of examples. So I'll be back with that shortly.